Shalom. So I'm going to be showing you that Israelites created the Negroes in the Americas and the Caribbean islands in Europe surnames, all right? All the English surnames, all the Gaelic surnames, the Scottish surnames, they was created by Negroes, all right? And this is Israel and Britain. So we're going to get into it. So on page 18, it's saying that the people that populated the British Isles were Scythians, and they consist of 3 tribes, all right? From whence they came with the 3 tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, all right? So the Scythians were a mixture of heathens and Hebrews, and the Hebrews were a mixture of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh. And this is customs of the Scythians. The Scythians also possessed large herds of cattle and horses and lived chiefly on milk and cheese. This was the characteristics employment of the Israelites, all right? They were servants, shepherds. They said to Pharaoh when they came to Egypt. The word sukta, dropped in the Greek plural, is suth. And Cynthia is called sukta in the Behistan inscription of the time of Cyrus. The word means wandering, being derived from a Hebrew word meaning to move to and fro or to wander. The word is thus exactly descriptive of what their prophets foretold they would become. They were to be wanderers among the nations, Hosea 9:17. They might therefore naturally adopt this title when they found themselves fulfilling the prediction. The word sake, or drop in the Greek plural, sak, is particularly the same word as Isaac, for the I is not essential to the name. Now it seems certain that many of the Israelites in their captivity called themselves by the name of Isaac instead of Israel. But it is stated by Mr. Wilson that the Neviah marbles record the rebellion of a people who called themselves Beth Isaac, or House of Isaac. This rebellion could only refer to one by the Israelites of the 10 tribes who have been carried captive to Media, then a part of the Assyrian dominion, and who were therefore subject to Assyria. But we find Amos, the prophet of the 10 tribes, speaking of them as the House of Isaac and their idolatrous places of worship as the high places of Isaac, Amos 7 and 9. This was just before their captivity. It was perhaps in anticipation of the time when they were to be no longer regarded as Israel, the chosen people of Yahweh, and might account for their calling themselves by the name of Isaac rather than Israel in their captivity. This appears to be the origin of the word sak, or sakeh, called in Persian language Sakasuna, sons of Sak or Isaac. But its chief force lies in the fact that the Scythians race can be shown to be the progenitor of the British and Anglo-Saxon race, and that we have seen there are strong reason for concluding on wholly separate grounds that the British and Anglo-Saxon race are the modern representatives of those very 10 tribes. The Scythians in Massagete began again to immigrate westward about a century and a half before the Christian era. There is a record of a large body of the Scythians, or Cimbri, 300,000 strong, leaving the western shores of the Euxine about 115 BC, transverting Europe, and during their migration defeating several Roman armies. There at one time of a people called Dan, and we find that a people called the Decay, and who inhabited the country north of Thrace and close to this locality were called Danans. They also spoke the same language as the Scythians, Gadid. It is quite possible that the tribe of Gan may have moved westward from the Caspians as an early period and settled in the country westward by the rivers to the north of the Scythians. Saxo Grammaticus says that Dan was the first king of Denmark, and that Denmark means the country of Dan. How about that? So Denmark means the country of Dan. These statements with the evidence of the tribe of Dan is in northwestern Scythia in the immigration at the same time of part of the Scythian or Cimbri are strong proof that the ancient Danes were some of the first immigrants to Western Europe, that they were of the same race as the Scythians, and they were of the tribe of Dan, one of the 10 tribes carried captives into Media. It also accounts for the fact that the Cambri, after their great defeat, came and settled in Denmark, the country of their brethren. Danes, and since Danes, the Cimbri and the Jutes were the founders of the great Scandinavian race who peopled Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. So we got evidence that it was Negroes that founded Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Scandinavia. And it further reads, Britain was invaded and conquered by the Saxons in the 5th and 6th centuries. And this is out of the book Ancient and Modern Britons by David McRitchie. The Jews, the Phoenicians, and the Chaldeans are all stated to have visited our islands at various periods and perhaps to have colonized them. It is the delight of one school of angelic writers to discover any affinities between the Hebrew and angelic tongues. And assuredly to a mere layman, these resemblance seem distant and unmistakable. The Irish name for the golden gorget and of the Druids, the forehand Marian, is identical with the Chaldees name for Urim and Thummim. In short, continues Governor Powell, early Irish antiquities, my friend, the Rabbi Haddock, I will have it that the name that none but Jews or Chaldees could have brought the name and thing to Ireland. When Martin visited the island of St. Kilda last century, he made the statement that the ancient Hebrews measure of omer and cubit continues to be used in Isles, and whatever the fact may be worth, the emblem known as Solomon's seal has been found by Scottish antiquities upon many a sculptured stone. That the wild tribes of Ireland were black men, and hinted by the fact that a wild Irishman is a black Irishman, dub, a Rinich, and that some of the natives of Scotland as well of England were of the same race also. That the Picts known to the Romans as Moors, and we know the Moors, Moor just means black, dark, dusty, brown, dusky, Salakia, brown, and what have you. The Picts seem to have preserved the tradition that the whole nation was once divided into 7 provinces, and it would appear that the 3 black civilizations over which Dub or the black held sway formed that portion of the original 7 which still remain untouched by the white race. These sketches are the presentment of what is all conscious is a savage people. The Mate or marsh folks against whom Servius fought were Caldoni, nicknamed Piddick, with known as Moor or black men of the race of Demnomni, who had curly hair, which may mean Kabrabagich, and swarthy skin, which they tattooed with their family totems. They wore nothing except their weapons like Zulus or any other dark-skinned savages. They smeared their faces with the blood of their foes if the Denami, were not cannibals. It was seen that the Scottish marsh dwellers encountered by Severius the black Demnani or painted Moors. The 4th century Scots, then being undistinguishable from the general black herd that made up the Scoto-Pictish army, were themselves of the same complexion as the Picts proper. That is to say, they also were Maori or Moors. However contradictory this deduction may appear, it must never be forgotten that the people who made Scotland an independent nation were not Scots. The Bruces, the Wallaces, the Stuarts, and many other lesser names were Norman and Flemings. All right, the rank and file of their followers may have been Scottish. Some of the leaders were so. For example, the good Sir James, the most loyal of all Bruce's knighthood, but he came of a race that boasted its ancient aboriginal blood and that bore a surname which signified the black man. And he himself, although by this time the family of Douglas had likely enough made more than one alliance with the whites, he himself was of a black and swart complexion, according to Godscroft, for which cause he was known to his foes as the Black Douglas. And although he died in battle with the Saracens of Spain, he was actually in some degree a Moor or Saracen himself. And further, this Moorish blood must have run in the veins of the chiefs of the house for fully a century after his death. For the Black Douglas or those of Liddesdales retained the headship of their clan until the year 1455, when they were overthrown and their estates forfeited in favor of the younger and rival branch of Angus, and it became a saying, it allusion to the complexion of two races, that the Red Douglas had put down the black. And this is when we started going left and started warring with each other. Black Douglas's confederacy in the attempt against the Stuart power. And the Stuarts were the one, King James the First. They was the ones that, put together our Bible. So then Galloway was devastated in the year 1455 by two separate black-skinned races. The one, the historical race of the Black Douglases, the other, a traditionally company of Moors, Saracen, or Gypsies. Both were the enemies of King James II. Both were enemies of the McKellians. The black herds of Scott and Picts were all alike to British Guilders, and Scott and Picts were simply black herds of vagabonds, and British Guilders was the British monk, a black British monk. And this is the book, Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica. And it's the introduction, and it reads, perhaps one of the names most frequently met with throughout the island is that of Burke, all right, the surname Burke. In some few instances, it is true the name itself may be a corruption of that of the Haitian refuge Du Bourg, who came to Jamaica in the 18th century at the time of the Haitian uprising. The usual explanation given for the presence of Irish names is, of course, that the slave of the former days were generally called by the family name of the master. But in the case of Burke, at least, we do not find a single planter of that name among the early records of Jamaica. Certainly, the survey of the year 1670 shows that at that time, not 1 acre of the land was owned by anyone named Burke. And the same may be said in the case of most of the other Irish names we encounter today among the Negroes of Ireland. All right, so this is saying that the Negroes, the Jamaicans that's in Ireland, their surnames came from them. They did not come from the Caucasians slave master, because it wasn't no land founded with the so-called slave master's name. All right, we came there with them names from Ireland, England, and Scotland. Got names like Colin, O'Hara, McCormick, Kennedy, Collins, Walsh, McKeon, McDermott, Kneeling, Burke, Mackney. These are all Negro names. These are not Caucasian slave master names. because they was not found in the territory where these people dwelt, in Barbados. And this is the Jacobite gleaning, all right, from State Manuscript, Short Sketches of Jacobite, the Transportation in 1745 by J. McBath IV, all right? This book going to show you some names of some Negroes that went into captivity by Oliver Cromwell. And these are the names. You can see John Lawson, well-made, slender, dark. Andrew Langer, dark. Matthew, dark. McDonald, swarthy. These are the transportations in 1745, all right? So in 1745, we wasn't taking names from Caucasians. We was prisoners of war in Ireland and got shipped off to the Americas in the Caribbean islands. And this is the proof out of the Jacobite gleaning from state to state manuscripts. These are all black men with Irish surnames.